In recent years, Nigerian workers have been facing a challenging situation as they are constrained and compelled to manage wages amidst inflation. Being the most populous country in Africa, Nigeria has a significant workforce that plays a crucial role in driving the economy. However, the constant rise in inflation and unpredictable currency strength meter in the forex market have made it difficult for workers to meet their basic needs and maintain a decent living. Could this spiraling situation drag the Nigerian workers into bankruptcy in the near future, if not rescued in time with drastic measures and a lasting solution? Would the Nigerian worker manage to ride out the storm? And is inflation a seasonal allergy which stretches out and unable to control? These petrifying moments and how it has become the norm in a buoyant society will be the crux of the matter tonight as we discuss with the guests on how Nigerian workers cope with wages amidst inflation. I am your carrier, Clinton. Thanks for joining us. You're welcome to Nigeria Today. Joining us via Zoom is Jide Ojo, a public affairs analyst. Good to have you with us, Jide. Okay, he will join us very soon. And also with us in the studio is Ni Akinshiju, an investment and financial analyst. Welcome to Nigeria Today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a privilege.
Now, I will just start with you. Before. You know, Ani, it's no longer news that the economy is biting. There's no need to pretend about it. Now, and priorities are changing from investment to trying to have a decent meal. Now, from a financial perspective, could you please explain how inflation, affects the purchasing power of Nigerian workers and their ability to cope with the rising living costs?
Well, perhaps you also need to extend the coverage of the variables. Yeah, we should not just look at Nigerian workers. Let's look generally at Nigerians. The fact is that inflation, simply put, is a persistent increase in prices. So, in price of goods and services, and it does mean that the relationship between inflation and earnings, it's inverse. The more prices go up, the more the value of earnings goes down. So to that extent, there's what you call value erosion in your earnings. So if you earn 1,000, let's say 10,000 naira in January this year, and inflation was about 20-something%, and by last count, October, 27.3%, you have about 7% increase. It will generally reflect, in the percentage of your earnings. So it means that prices have gone up. The 10,000 naira you have will not buy the kinds of goods and services you use it to buy in January. So the value of your earnings in October has reduced relative to the value it was in January. So why workers generally will complain is that the workers earn a specific definable earnings per term, month, week, or year. So because prices are going up, salaries will not possibly match up with the rate of increment of prices of goods and services. So to that extent, the value of your earnings, which remains specific, which remains constant, would be disadvantaged in relationship between what you use your earnings, because you use your earnings mostly first to sustain yourself, buy food, buy goods and services. It is when you have extra, that you even want to invest or you want to bank, you want to save. And like you said, choices are changing. the way we live life are also changing because of the reality of what we have on ground. Most workers, in truth, don't even have extra to save now. And to that extent, it will impact the saving culture. And in the long run, also impact investments. So the workers now lives from hand to mouth. That is our reality. But again,
we'll get to what should be done. Now, Jide, welcome to Nigeria today.
Thank you very much. I can hear you.
Okay. So, Jide, just like Eni rightly said, it's becoming a little bit, will I say difficult? Use the word difficult there. Since we are living from hand to mouth, some workers will tell you that they earn more now, but what they can afford is far less than what than they were able to afford before, when they were even earning lesser than what they are earning now. Now, how would you assess the current state of wages in light of the prevailing inflationary pressure?
Well, again, we need to understand that purchasing power parity of the currency of the country is based primarily on what you can buy with that currency. And inflation and devaluation of our currency has eroded the strength of the naira. I should say that it's not peculiar to Nigeria and that it's a global phenomenon, given the fact that many countries, out of 196 countries of the world, I'm not sure there is one country that is immune from the rising cost of living. So, unfortunately for Nigeria, we have inflation climbing to about 25, 26% now, if not 27. Because we have low productivity. In fact, the most affected of this is food inflation. Banditry hasn't allowed for mass production of food as expected. And we have now resorted to importation. And to import, you need foreign currency. If you are going to bring in rice from Thailand, you need to pay the Thai company dollars in order to exchange for the number of tons of rice you want to bring in. So, as you said, our problem is largely lack of sufficient productivity of goods and services, because when the currency, as Mr. Akishiju has explained, you have a situation now that you are earning more, but you can, that's much that you are earning, which is far more than what you are earning even at the beginning of the year, could not fetch you as much goods as you would have bought even up to May 2023. Today, the minimum wage worker is earning about 65,000 naira. If you go by 30,000 minimum wage and the 35,000 wage award, which the government said will be from September 2023. But now with 65,000, there is now rising cost of accommodation, transportation, food, clothing. Christmas is coming now. If you go price shoes, clothes, even consumables like rice, groundnut oil, and all of that, they have all increased. Why? Because of lack of productivity and foreign dependency on foreign goods. unfortunately, we do not have enough dollars to even import these foods. So many of the importers have to approach black marketers or parallel market to source foreign exchange to bring in these goods, whether it's electronics or food items or automobiles, whatever you want to bring in. They are not going to collect naira from you to be able to bring in those things. So there is a combination of low productivity and the fact that you also have high inflation, and of course, inflation dependent on not producing sufficient quantity of food to be able to bring. Because the basic law of economics, Ukeria, is that when much money is chasing few goods, price will rise. But where the supply far exceeds demand, price will fall. These are things that we are taught in, Form 3 in secondary school. So it tells you that this thing is about the law of demand and supply. The reason why much of our currency or much of our income now goes into buying of foods and paying rent and transportation is because there aren't enough, and the few that are available take advantage of that to make maximum or super profit. But everything is still dependent on productivity. If we have more than enough, either of food, of housing, of anything, whether you will be able to bring down the price of these items because nobody wants to produce without selling.
Problems. And of course, this is a problem that we are living with. Whether we like it or not, we have to cope with it. The average Nigerian believes it will get better. Yeah. Before it gets to that point where we say, okay, it is better, we have to cope with the situation. So how, in your opinion, can one cope with these kinds of situation?
No, but I think first we need to appreciate where we are coming from and why we are here. It was inevitable that we have to get to this point because of the nature and model of our economic system. Before now, it wasn't. It's a junction that you have to arrive and then determine which of the roads you have to take. So we have arrived at this junction that was inevitable because there was a need to change our economic templates. We have been sustaining what I call a feeding bottle economy till now. And that's the truth.
What does that mean?
A feeding bottle economy is an economy that makes to reduce the cost and tension of living by government policy. And that's, of course, will be counted what will be counted in those factors will be subsidizing our fuel price, subsidizing our foreign exchange. Some companies are relocating out of Nigeria now. And some of us are like, why are they relocating? It's as if the government is... No, it is because access to cheap forex, access to cheap dollars, is... we're not even controlled. It's now exposed or subjected to market forces. So it's a change of templates. It's a change of economic template that has brought us here. And I think for us to even redeem that situation, we will need first to persevere. That's the truth. Because again, we also know that over time, because of that wrong economic template that we've been managing, to introduce appropriate policy has become difficult because these are extra economic issues that we bring into our life. So when you apply, for instance, the standard monetary policy tool to control inflation, which is increase in benchmark rates, because the government is pumping so much money in subsidy, government is pumping so much money in subsidizing forex. Those tools cannot work because they are not open to the market in the real sense of it. The U.S. economy went banged on to an inflation rate of more than 10%. Over the last 13 to 14 months, it has dropped to 3% because the template is a capital market-driven template. You know, the same with the UK. The UK went at as high as 9-point-something%. You know, it's back now into that manageable range of 4%. Their inflation target is 2%. But when you look at while we were moving up, they are coming down. And it's simply because they are running a purely market-based economy. We were not running any form of economy. You know? So the dependency economy we were running can only be sustained if we continue to have money coming into the system. If we are selling 2.7 million barrels a day of crude oil, if we are making so much money from so many places, then we'll be feeding ourselves. Because that's what we've been doing all this while. We've been feeding ourselves. We've been trying to live big, you know, on a low life economy. So essentially here we are. This is our reality. This is the only way we can start redeeming is by reducing or removing this fuel price subsidy, and I support it. And it's also reflected now. If you look at the inflation rate month to month, the figures circulating now is the October figure, and you compare it to September figure,
it's a decline.
You see a decline. Either in the headline inflation itself, 1.39 to 2.10, 1.79 to 2.10 headline inflation.
But is it reflecting?
No, you see, it's marginal.
Nigerian.
If we are talking about inflation rates, we are trusting the figures. You know? So when there's a perceptible movement downward, if we trusted the figure to move up, we should also trust that perceptible movement downward to read certain meanings, you know, and imputation into that movement. So for me, if food prices had moved down from 2.45 to 1.91 between September and October, it means that some food items, prices are also coming down.
Okay.
You know, the core inflation, for instance, had also came down. It also means that certain segments of the food basket, of the economy, either transportation, medicine, medicals and all that are in the core inflation item, index, they are moving down. So it does mean that some of the tools being applied or deployed to correct these, you know, anomalies, as it were, are having impact. So I will want to appeal that we persevere and look at how this will change, because over time, it does mean that price would reduce, not like what we used to have in the past. But again, because price is reducing, we are likely to be comfortable with salary increments. Because now, even at the federal purse, in the federal federation account, more fund is being shared among FAC. Where before, we used to jubilate when we have 600 billion, 700 billion to be shared among states and local governments and federal government. Now we are having an average of 1.2 trillion every month. So that tells us that we are actually earning more as a federation. And again, if it is properly disciplined, expended, it will now come back to impact the larger environments.
Okay. Jide has really explained quite a lot there. We are so dependent on what the government does. We will not stop for now. We will always be until, we kind of we stabilize, sort of. Now, what measures, in your opinion, Jide, can the government, implement, to ensure that Nigerian workers' wages keep up with the inflation and also prevent a decline in the standard of living?
Yes, we may be heading in the right direction. We may have been able to exit even the so-called fuel subsidy. I stand to be challenged that we have completely exited subsidy. There's still subsidy being paid, given the fact that the price has been held back by a form of under-recovery by NNPCL. So maybe that's why we are not buying at cost-reflective price, because the cost-reflective price of refined petroleum products today, we should have been buying fuel at about 800 to 1,000 naira per liter. So somebody is paying the difference. But I'm more concerned by our lack of productivity and our penchant for foreign importation of goods that are not necessary. I take exception to the lifting of ban on 34 items that were banned by CBN under Buhari. I take exception to that. Yes, I'm not an expert economist or accountant, but at least my basic knowledge of economy shows that we cannot say that people can import toothpick and all those items that are not adding value to our lives, and then we spend the little foreign exchange that we have to bring in such items. Again, look at the number of procurement of vehicles that we are buying. Even in the budget, the supplementary budget and all the budgets, we are buying products that are not made in Nigeria, where we heavily, if you want to bring in any of those treated vehicles from Japan, from Germany, or wherever they are bringing them in, you are going to spend forex. So you now have a situation where the little foreign exchange you are earning, which is not enough, is being spent on things that ordinarily we should be producing in the country.
30 seconds, Niyi, how can the Nigerian worker cope? That I'm just interested in that part. How can we cope with this situation?
How they put it?
Cut your coat.
You cut your coat according to your cloth, not to your size, Because if you understand,
your size might be bigger than your cloth.
So if you understand the circumstances you found yourself, the whole idea is you start reducing expenses, and of course we appeal to those in government to also reduce. I agree with him. At the level of the kind of lifestyle some people in government, they maintain, they sustain.
Okay.
We should reduce that. But again, I want to correct the issue on the fuel subsidy. It was an advocacy issue, and the NNPC insisted that it was not subsidizing.
You will come back and tell us that next time. But at this point, we'll draw the curtain here. Okay. I want to say a very big thank you to Niyi Akinshiju, an investment and financial analyst. Thank you so much for coming.
A pleasure.
And also a very big thank you to Jide Ojo, a public affairs analyst that joined us via Zoom. Thank you so much for your time and contribution. And thank you for being part of the program. I am Eucharia Clinton. Goodbye.